Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, the 18th of June. Water is the new gold. And in fact, I'm about to do my little cute share thing that I do. So water is the new gold, helping you thrive in the world's only vital, scarce, and recession-proof market. And there'll be more about that. We just wrote an important LinkedIn article that will get into that. So without further ado, I'm going to quickly show you the panel that talks about our disclaimers, a safe harbor statement, which basically says, while we're very smart, we are not fortune tellers. And so these are what we say here is intended. It's the best information we have. But of course, there are risks and uncertainties. If we start talking about the offering that's in progress, then of course there's a disclaimer here that the Securities and Exchange Commission has not reviewed the offering, and so they are not responsible. There happens to be Regulation A disclaimer here, but as you may know already, we've paused the offering to improve it, and we expect to have more updates about that very soon. But without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing, and I would like to introduce a good friend of the company's, Rick Keller. Rick, say hi.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
So, Rick, gosh, how long have you been involved with this company?
I believe it was around 2008 that through, I think it was a Scientific American of that, had discovered that you were working with the algae and able to separate the oil and the algae from it through electrostatic.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from Illinois, unbeknownst to a lot of our country, our Great Lakes have a lot of water. The problem is it's not available to the United States by treaty with Canada. You've got to be in the watershed to have access to it. There's a town in Indiana about 8 miles away from the lake, and they can't get water because they're not in the watershed.
Wow, I did not even know that. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. So when you look at the United States, we got plenty of water in that. No, we don't. And we're going through it pretty fast. And at some point, we're going to have to realize that we just can't put it down the rivers or try to get rid of it. We're going to have to recycle that water.
Well,
make better use of it.
You are, I think I'm going to hire you as a pitchman for the company because you're doing a fine job. So fast forwarding here, obviously, you've been a long-term investor in the company itself.
Yes.
And you got involved a couple of years ago in Wisconsin with a colleague that was interested in using our technology in the hog farms there, dairy farms too, I believe. And yes. And now I think we'll just be discussing further how you're maybe helping, you may be getting involved with this short-term rental phased approach, which we'll discuss in greater detail. So you're really starting to become not just an investor in the company, but also potentially doing equipment financing with this partner of yours. And at this point, I want to make it very clear in this briefing that at this time, Origin Clear is not offering investments in water equipment to investors. What's happening right now is people like Rick Keller are directly working with potential users, in this case in the Wisconsin area, and they're doing deals directly. We're like witches looking at the cauldron, but we are ourselves not parties to the transaction because we still have to work out the regulatory fabric of these investment offerings. So at this time, the only offering coming out of Origin Clear is to invest in the private placement that is now in progress. So just putting that there is very important. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly play a video that sets the stage for what you and I have been working on. What we have here is the Investor Water draft website. This is a very simple website that is pending the fancier one that's being done. But just to recap where we stand, we have 3 projects in the lab. The first one is called 2 Million Pools. And this is really about recycling. Instead of people dumping the water in their pool, which has to be done occasionally, instead to run a kind of a kidney dialysis machine to purify it. And that, of course, saves a lot of water, but also potentially saves that pool from being cracked when it's dry, or in Florida, floating up off the bed. So that, as we reported last week, is a done deal. We finalized a rental to a pool cleaning entrepreneur. The great news is that we've since had several leads, and now the Investor Water project is not interested in doing more pool deals. What we're working on is the financial model. So in this case, we turned over those leads to Origin Clear, which is now following up in Texas and doing very well with it. So, and those things are being done with conventional financing. The unique Investor Water incubation, shall we say, is being done on these very specific transactions. The second one is the project in Troy, Alabama. And this is where we're talking about remediating the lagoons. Trailer parks have their own lagoons. It's astonishing but true. And these lagoons have to go. The state of Alabama and other states are like, no more of this. And so we are in the process of finalizing a project. And once again, we've hooked up the potential investor. And I spoke with her this week, and she agreed in principle to connect with the end users of that Troy, Alabama thing. And once again, we're not going to be acting as a quote unquote market or sponsor in any way of the financing. We'll be providing the equipment as a water company. And that means we're not going to take our percentage as a market. Fine. But it keeps it simple and allows us to keep working on this model without getting into the minefield of regulation, which is state by state. It's probably the most challenging part of this whole project. So finally, we come to the third lab project we have in mind, which is Animal Pharm Lagoons. Now, these things, as I've said before, they generate huge amounts of manure. We're talking about a 2,500 cow dairy farm generates as much manure or poop as the entire city of Miami with 440,000 people. So I think I've calculated that something like 1.6, that all the farms, dairy alone in America, generate as much manure, poop, shall we say, effluent, as 1.6 billion people. It's just a ridiculous amount of people. So it's a real problem. It's actually a far bigger problem than human. And a lot of these people are a lot of these operators are hauling it out. But let me just run the video real fast, because I think that tells the story really well, and then we can circle back. Hi, Riggs Eckelberry here, Origin Clear CEO, and I love where we're going with Investor Water. It's a breakthrough marketplace to get rapid funding of badly needed local water sanitation projects. It's fast. It brings in a whole new class of Main Street investors, and I think it's a solution for so much that is not happening right now, but must happen if we want better sanitation in the world. But the real question is, how do you scale it up? Like an outboard motor, pull on the cord and the thing starts, but then it can go bigger. And that's what this presentation explores. Take a look, and I think you'll like it. Let's talk a little bit about a specific situation where we can actually help, because now we have this Investor Water concept, right? And what do we have? We have the hog farm, cattle farm, poultry farm, whatever, with the, these are the buildings where the animals are raised, slaughtered, and so forth. And here we have the manure lagoon, right? Now that manure lagoon is a problem. Why? Because the US government and the state government is coming down hard on these. Why? Because you have various toxic gases coming out of it, right? And so what they're doing right now is they have to do something, right? So they're literally paying, these are my little pictures of trucks, right? They're paying waste haulers like Waste Management up to $1 million a month to haul that away. And yet you could have a comprehensive solution, let's say for $1 million, $2 million. It's what you're paying a month, you could pay and be done, right? Now I'm just being approximate numbers. It might be more, but it's in that range, right? So it's just like when you rent a TV, you're soon going to spend more money on that TV than if you paid for it in the first place, right? And so that's where we really want to get into a solution. The problem is that this solution, and I'm going to put it right here, I'm going to
clear some land here, and I'm going to set up our, remember that operation in Spain that we had set up? Well, there it is. Okay. So there's, processing plant, and there's ponds here and so forth. And so that now takes the water and it processes it, and you get fertilizer, and then you get clean water, H2O. So win-win, right? Everybody's happy. That's great. Only problem is money, right? These people are able to spend $1 million a month, let's say, but a capital expenditure of that much or perhaps more is going to be tough. And so that is the challenge. So how do we deal with that problem, right? Because we looked at it, it's like, how do we sell this? And our partners in Europe and our partners elsewhere, and we ourselves in the United States are dealing with a problem of way too much waiting and trying to get capital and raising money. And that, again, is not getting us anywhere. And it's now gotten worse, as I said. Well, here's the solution. We have a solution here where we can put something that we've colloquially called the bobber, right? Here's a little flag, and it's got a little diving platform. And this thing here is a biological solution that sweetens that manure pond, right? Now, it does not take care of the entire problem, but it does reduce the amount of trouble that the government's giving, and it buys time. And it is a pre-treatment for this eventual system. So what you do is you say, okay, you are going to buy this whole thing, but you could start with something inexpensive in the $100,000, $200,000 range that will even rent to you. You don't just start paying. Well, you're already paying over here. Get rid of these waste management trucks, right? And just sanitize the lagoon. And now you've got phase one of a total solution. And that's what makes a lot of sense, because it gives them a win. They're now able to save money, get a stay of execution, right? And then when the time is right, they go ahead and they get the whole thing. They get away from rental. Again, you don't want to rent forever, right? But they get the whole thing in a package. And now they have that beautiful fertilizer, H2O type situation going on. And Bob's your uncle, right? So that's where this translates into real world solutions. So far, we've done things like these pool cleaning systems and so forth, which are really great, but they don't go to the millions of dollars, right? This, we think, is the real business. That's so exciting. So, let me just recap a little bit, what we're talking about here, because I'm just going to, persuade this thing to go to slide. And let's take a look at the business model, okay? So when we have investor water, what are we talking about? We have, in this eventual marketplace, you have a series of water companies, right? Water. And over here, you have money. In the middle, you have projects that these guys and gals upload, right? And we have Origin Clear watching this and making sure that these are technologically good, right? And then we help bring the investors in, we help bring the water companies in, and now we have a marketplace, okay? And that's our vision for this whole thing, is to actually promote what I call a popcorn popper, right? Put the popcorn in, turn up the heat, and pretty soon the popcorn's popping, okay? So that is the vision of investor water. And it really works well when you have these longer term solutions like that hog farm, right? Where you are really looking at starting with something cheap, but rolling it into something bigger. And that's the progress that we've made in the last week or so. I hope that next week I can bring on somebody who knows this business really well, who's been educating us on it, who's been pointing us in the right direction to where this is going to help us build that interesting marketplace. So the vision of the future for us is, again, and I'm getting good at moving these little tabs here. Vision again for us is to create a place where everybody is going to be working together, right? And that is the future. Stay tuned. and you'll be seeing the Investor Water website coming up and more wins. As I said, we already did the thing in the pool business. This gets more exciting. I'll see you soon.
Well, you're one of those experts that we've been relying on tremendously. I was talking in the video about the problem of this endless trying to do the big deals. And you and I know about this. You've been living this with your partner, Rob. And this is a direct attempt to deal with that. And how do you think this is playing this pre-treat idea?
Well, the pre-treat idea is we've talked about this for now probably 9 months to almost a year, because when we first started this type of project, we were looking at some of the variables that cause difficulties for the engineers to kind of focus on, because every farm is different.
Right.
It's just the nature. God doesn't make all the lagoons exactly the same. And the contents of it can vary. The phosphorus, the nitrogen, how much solids are in it, and that. And we were sitting there, okay, now we can send the water and get it tested, and we can know what it is. And that leads to the engineers telling us what we need to acquire to process that water to be usable in some way, from the fertilizer, how we're going to get rid of the water, and that there are constraints. When I started working with, you might hear from Tom later, it looked like the pre-treat, or how we start the process to get everything in line so that when we process the water, it's consistent. Because remember what happens with a lagoon. We can take water today, and 3 weeks later, there are heavy rains. It's changed.
Oh, you're so right. We're basically not just sanitizing the water. In a way, we're formatting it so that it is standardized.
So that we can run consistent treatment.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a really good observation, Rick. So
when you came up, well, let me just add, when you came up with the sweetening capability, because remember, here's what gets the farmers in trouble. Obviously, the smell. The neighbors don't really like it.
Right.
And as we expand communities and that, and people get into the suburbs and the rural, they hate to have a pig farm somewhere within the next 3 miles because they know it. Some of the other constraints is things that they were doing before, like they might have just been some of the other applications take out the solids in that they have been sold, but they never hold up long enough. But more so, they hadn't really focused on the chemistry of what their water is. So if they put on their fields, they could build up salts. If it's running off and the phosphates in that are getting into the rivers and the creeks, next thing you got is algae blooms, all kinds of things that nobody thought about when it was such a great idea. And it was expensive, and most of them had to be built in. What is Origin Clear giving us? The ability to have some capability to really take care of the chemistry. And if I may just interject in a minute about how we go about that, it's modular and can focus on the chemistry, and also gives us a chance to keep what the farmer considers gold, as effluent dried, or the fertilizer, or the nitrogen phosphorus that they can get out of pig manure. It's one of the best.
You're so right.
Gardeners
love that stuff too.
Oh yeah, that's gold to them. They don't want that to get away from them. But the thing is that they spray down their sheds and that, and the pigs and that, and all that water's got to go somewhere. Some have 3 ponds actually to keep separating. But again, we're getting EPA who says, wait a second, you can't have 3 smelly ponds in that small a territory.
Good.
And all these things are going on. We have been told stories about the fact that they have to haul it away, as you said. People have tried to dump it over some sort of flowway towards the river through sand and gravel. None of these things really solve the problem. So, when we come with modular, the nice thing is we can talk about the 3 tiers. The first tier, after the water comes through real quickly, would be capable of being put onto the farmer's fields in that. I like that idea. If you were going to discharge it and it's going to end up in any creeks and waters, you can bolt on another unit that will get it to potable and easy enough to pass the EPA requirements for discharge. But the thing is that you can even get to the water that's clean enough to drink that will pass all EPA if you need it. So if you were going and reusing it and that, you can do that. And you can build it over time. Start with your sweetener, add this, add that, add the other as things change. And you're basically got a closed cycle in the end if you wanted to get to it.
You and I are in such strong agreement about that we've now broken down. In other words, we're now eating the elephant in smaller bites, right?
Right.
Because it was so darn hard to go, oh, we're going to give you a complete solution, millions of dollars, and it would get into this horrible capital cycle. And what we like about this immediate rental project, which I'm going to go over briefly on the spreadsheet with you, is going to be really a way to jumpstart things with really no capital planning whatsoever. So thank you. I think that you have really pointed to what is a major problem, and that we might have just have the solution here. I'm going to share quickly the spreadsheet that this has been about. So what we have here, very, very fast. You're giving me informal advice on this, but as a CPA, you are not opining here in any way.
No.
But let's say that this solution is $125,000, including everything to install it. And over here we have the table of fees, where the renter pays first, last, and security. So roughly $21,000 some dollars, and gets into the business and then spends $7,000 a month. Now, this may be different. It may be that the market can only bear $5,000. We don't know yet. That's where we're testing it. The investor gets a certain percentage. The operator gets, we've been playing with different numbers, 20% plus the 5% monthly service. The market, which is what investor water would get, the market percentage is not being charged at this time because of the legal thing. So that goes away, makes the piece for the investor a bit better. And of course, I want to disclaim that this is a theoretical model right now. And then we get how the rental works out. And the beauty of this thing is that the IRR, the internal rate of return, can be, depending how it models out, right around 26%, which is a beautiful internal rate of return. 41% if you build in the tax advantages, 38%. I mean, to make more than a third of your investment every year is, I think, attractive, because not only that, you have ownership of the asset. So this is very popular right now. There's a buyout here where the buyout occurs at year 4. I won't get into details here, but still the IRR is very good. It's 24% without tax and 40% with tax. So this is a model that you are now, Rick, going to be experimenting with the potential renter, because I think you have identified a potential customer for this test. Am I right?
Correct.
Excellent. So you're going to be playing with that. This is why we're so interested in this, even though we're not yet getting our market percentage. We are providing the machine, the equipment, as Origin Clear. So for us, it's as if we were bringing in a leasing company that would do things separately. You and the user will work things out directly.
Exactly. May I add one interesting point from the Origin Clear that's kind of important?
Go ahead.
You've got 5 years here. The equipment lasts a lot longer than that. So,
oh my gosh, I know exactly where you're going. Go ahead.
So once this project's done with the farmer and that, if he likes it, that it's still good for another 10, 20 years or more. Just needs some membrane refurbish in that and cleanup, and should last them far longer than one would ever expected in this environment.
Well, you have made an extremely good point. And what the investor gets full depreciation year one with Section 179 accelerated depreciation, he or she is out now.
At the end of 5.
And at the end of 5 years, Origin Clear gets the machine for $1 or whatever. And that's an asset, which is
exactly
very exciting. So moving quickly along here, I wanted to go to the next stage here. So we'll close this out. We published an article on LinkedIn, both in my personal LinkedIn, but also in the Origin Clear one. And this is an article which basically states what this is about. Smart investors like alternative investments. Why not water? And we say, okay, alternative investments because they're not connected to the stock market. And if you think the stock market is predictable, then please give me a call because I can't. Whatever. I can't even make sense of what's going on in the stock market. What we do have here is these alternative investments, which are assets that make cash money. Real estate, problem, crashing. Oil and gas, problem, crashing. Solar industry, setback 5 years. Water needs more people, actually. And it's actually, growing stably and so forth. You can buy shares in a water company like us. You can buy a municipal water bond, but no, you cannot invest in the projects like you are, Rick. And that's a whole missing category of investment in the world. I invite everyone to go take a look at this because this is our statement of where we're going and how exciting it is. Here's why this is very, 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 very important. We have here a Wall Street Journal article which talks about the growing consensus of how you catch COVID, which I'm not going to get into in this conversation. But what it does talk about, very importantly, is that as we go in the future, viruses are not going to go away. What's happened in the past is we've tended to go, okay, looks like the virus didn't get too bad. We kind of whistled past the graveyard, right? Well, that's done. There's going to be precautions. Now, I don't think we'll have full lockdowns, but there's going to be an ongoing, and it says right here, we should not be thinking of a lockdown, but of ways to increase physical distance, including allowing outside activities, allowing walking physically distant, curbside pickup, which can facilitate resumption of economic activity without a rekindling of the outbreak. So what's happening is that, and again, widespread testing, contact tracing, isolation of people, it's going to develop into a regime that's going to allow the world to continue even while there are viruses out in the wild. The reason I mention this is that water is a big picture, a big piece of this. Sanitation is the reason why we don't have what happened with the Spanish flu, which is 80 to 100 million people dead because of the horrendous sanitation that was going on at the time. Today, we have much better sanitation, but it's still way shy. And so I would add to this list of the things is going to be better sanitation. Water ranks right there. So that's why the mission is so important, in my opinion. Now, I told you last week that I'm moving to Clearwater, Florida, and my wife and I are doing so. And here's an announcement we made on my friends page, and looks like a lot of people. What was it? 180 comments and 210 likes and wows and so forth. Going to the west coast of Tampa, a place called Clearwater. And as you can see, we're overlooking the bottom left there. We're overlooking the Intracoastal Waterway, and we intend ultimately to buy. This is just a short-term rental so that we can check out the place. Now, the reason I mention this is not just because you need to know where I live, because it probably doesn't matter very much. But as you know, a couple months ago, we announced that we moved the company itself from California to Texas. We left a small administrative presence in California. Now, even that's going away, and we will establish a small operations office in the Clearwater, St. Pete area. And so the general manufacturing and headquarters of the company will remain in Texas, and we will have an operations office in Clearwater. I will be there. Tom Marchicello is already there. He's been there for several months in Sarasota, which is south of St. Pete. And, it doesn't matter much because it's WFH, right? It's work from home. But I wanted you guys to know that is going to happen, and you're the first to know outside of our friend network. I'm going to now turn to the slideshow, and I'm going to mention that we have some very important people here to talk to. Right now, the offering that we have in place, even though it seems that the stock's doing fine, but we don't want you to rely on the stock price. We offer it's basically a bond, and that bond is convertible to stock at your option. And there's all kinds of interesting, very good dividends, 12%, 8% cash, 4% stock, annual dividend paid quarterly of 12% all in, plus a big premium. You're able to recapture your principal with stock, and you're also receiving a stock grant. So it's extremely generous. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because you are funding our development of what we think is this Airbnb concept for the industrial water. And you will participate as an investor. You're super important because you're basically our venture capitalist is what you are. Now, Ken has an amazing presentation. You must book with him. You can simply schedule a call by going to www.oc.gold/Ken or call him up, extension 201 at this phone number. If you want to talk to Devin, that's a great way to get through to me because he's my assistant. He's at extension 116, or email invest@originclear.com. That is pretty much it for tonight. To recap, we really are moving fast on the 3 lab projects. First one done, as you know. The second one and the third one are actually happening almost on top of each other. And we're finalizing this financial model and making sure that we have something viable. And I also want to mention as a parting shot, we believe that we have found a partner from whom we can license their financial, their investment, a way for ordinary investors to invest in an asset. They use it in the real estate space. And what they're doing is they're enabling investors to invest directly into residential real estate, bypassing the mortgage companies, the banks, and everybody else. I love it. Democratization of investment. We believe that we can use their model. And we're speaking, in fact, further on Saturday about this, and I will keep you advised. I'm very excited about that. This is a company that's on the Inc. 500, so they're extremely successful. And we think that we can take their model and adopt it for ours. It's just a theory right now, but it's very, very exciting. Viruses are not going away. Manira says, what ways do you suggest we stay safe and healthy moving forward? Well, I think that what the Wall Street Journal says is, they're not saying it themselves, they're reporting on this group, is very good. Number one is to follow all these, I think permanently we're going to have a more socially distant world. When I flew, I'm in Florida right now. When I flew over yesterday, the center seat on Delta was empty. That center seat is going to stay empty for a long time. There's going to be massive changes. So all that aside, what can you do yourself in the water area? And that's where what we're doing is very important. Look, I've reported before on the 100,000 septic tanks in Miami-Dade County that are now overflowing. We can replace them with these financed units. This is super exciting. I am so excited that we've broken through, I believe, to what the solution is to get these problems handled quickly, which they cannot be handled by one company. I'm sorry. We are not gods. We are, I think, a very good company, but it's impossible to take care of the entire world, certainly on the timeline we're talking about. And so let's move quickly. And it's done by putting in place a system. And technology is good. We have this important technology, but even more important is the money. So,
Riggs?
And yes, sir.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
When we're looking at the hog farms and things, as we clean water, we can't chlorinate it. We can't throw chemicals in it. We have to go and remove contaminants. And you might consider chlorinization and those things that our municipal water people do as not the way of the future.
Well, you just blow my mind. Rick, you just blew my mind because, as you know, We have electro water separation and electro oxidation, which do the sanitizing without the chlorine and so forth. That is, you have just, oh my gosh. Well, that is a very good note on which to wrap up. Rick, thank you for that, because we think our technology is amazing. And with this structure, we're going to do well. But also, we believe that everyone else got great technology too. We're not the only people with great technology.
Right.
Is we want to have this big witch's cauldron, which all these deals happening there, and we're overseeing it with our great chief engineer and the whole team. So thank you, Rick. It's been fascinating to have you on board. Thank you for having contributed, and thank you everyone for sticking through. Literally everyone stuck here. So I thank you for your loyalty and your patience. I'll see you again next Thursday, and we will have more exciting updates on where this is going. Have a nice evening, everyone. And Rick, thank you very much. Say goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Right on. All right. Thank you all.